Hi, I'm Kent. So not too long ago, I tried coloring my slip using different types of mason stains. I actually tried a bunch of different percentages of mason stains to see the effect it would have on different colors. Now that I have my colored slip, I want to try something else out. I've seen some pots where they basically layer the slip and create different shells, kind of like, candy shells on a Jawbreaker, where there are different very thin layers that then get carved through afterwards. So I've done a little bit of carving of my pots, but I've never tried layering the slip. So let's try that and see how it turns out. So here's my mold. I've got some slip with black mason stain. This is about 4% by dry weight of clay black mason stain. I've got blue, and then off to the side, I also have some regular slip. So I think there's two ways to go about doing this. One is I could pour all the slip in and fill it up, let it sit for a while and dump the slip out, just like I normally do, only don't let it sit as long and then add the multiple slips after each other. I think that will wind up with walls that are a little bit thicker that I could then carve through. The other option is to pour in the slip and basically pour it back out. So I wouldn't need to fill it up all the way. And that'll wind up with very thin walls. But it will also dry faster. So I'm going to try that, I think. I'm going to pour in a little bit of slip. I don't need to fill it up all the way. And then just rotate this around to get all the edges covered. I'm just going to go around a couple of times. All right, I got the inside completely covered. There's a little bit of slip in the bottom, so I'm going to dump that out. I'm going to want to let this drain really well, so I don't have any excess slip. I think I'm also going to let it set for a few minutes before I put in the next color. Okay, it's been a couple of minutes, and this looks like it's set pretty well. I'm not going to touch it because I'm pretty sure it's very soft. All right, next I'll use my slip with black mason stain, so this will be a gray. And same thing, I'm just going to pour a little in the bottom and then swirl it around the sides. I'm pretty sure the slip on the bottom is going to be thicker than on the top, just because I'm pouring the slip up from the bottom. All right, and then same thing, I'm just going to go around a couple times. All right, we'll try that. Same drill, I will set it on top of the slip to drip back out. Okay, there's the black. It looks like it's set up pretty well and is pretty uniform. I've got my container of regular slip here. I'm going to do a little bit of that next. This just came out of the bucket. I mixed it up, but usually there are little pieces of clay still floating around, so I'm going to run it through my strainer. All right, same drill. Here I dripped some on the sides. I wonder if that'll be a thicker spot. Occasionally I'm just setting it up and shaking it to get all the slip back down off the rim. I suspect the people that are really good at this know exactly how much slip to put in each time. I'm getting a little bit of colored marbling in the bottom. So that means the black was not all the way set. I also think the slip has a little bit more water in it than the others. Yeah, with just the right amount, I can just swirl it around. So I'll do that, let it drip for a little while, and do the next color. All right, I try to let that one sit a little bit longer. Next layer, blue. Try putting in a little bit less and see if that works. I think the other thing that would be good is to do many molds at the same time. There's a fair amount of sitting and waiting, drying time between these. I think ideally you'd put in just enough slip so you don't have to pour any out. That might take a fair bit of practice to learn how to judge that. Yeah, when there's just a little bit, it actually goes really well. You just run it around the edge like this. All right, I still have a little bit in the bottom, so I'm gonna let that drain out just like before. No, I think I'm getting better at estimating the amount of slip. This time I think I used just about all of what I poured in. All right, so the black has set as well. It's a little bit shiny at the bottom, but I think it's dry enough. So I think for my last layer, I'm actually just gonna fill up the mold the rest of the way. That way I can get a nice thick layer to support the pot. I think these layers are actually pretty thin. I really won't know until I start carving into it. But that way I'll have a nice thick pot that I don't need to worry about the structural integrity of. All right, now I'll treat this just like a regular pot, let it set for a while, build up a thicker shell, and then dump out the slip. All right, there it is. So off camera, I just went ahead and trimmed the top here. It'll need some touch up for sure, but you can already see the layer starting to form. So the inside layer is the thickest, not surprisingly, and then you can see the banding going out. The outside layer is a little bit hard to tell since it kind of wraps over the top of the pot. And you can also see the slip in the bottom still a little bit wet. I'll go ahead and let this dry more so it releases from the plaster mold, and we'll pop it out. I'm guessing it won't look all that interesting once it is popped out because it'll just be the solid color, or it should just be the solid color. And then after that, it will be time to carve it. Now this has been sitting for a while. The top doesn't look like it's released from the edge, so this one might need a little bit of help getting out. There we go. So I think what happens is when I trim the edge, I also push the clay down a little bit on some of these, and that just creates a seal. Underneath it had actually shrunk. All right, let's see if we can get it to come out. Oh, yeah, no problem. So this is still really wet, so I just cleaned it up a little bit, but I don't want to handle it. So I think what I'm going to do is cover it so it doesn't dry out very quickly, and then check it periodically and come back to it when it is in a carvable state. So this is firmed up quite a bit. It should be ready to carve. You can see the layer lines in the top edge of the pot right now. This will need to be cleaned up. So the question is, which pattern do I want to carve? So the pot isn't all that thick, and some of these layer lines are pretty thin. I think I want a very shallow carving into this. That will give a very oblique angle and have maximum exposure of the different layer lines while also not going very deep. So I don't have very many tools. These are the two that come to mind. This one I can carve across the surface and not go very deep. I can also use my metal rib, and I think I could just kind of skim across it and carve out some of the pot. I think I'll stick with the carving tool for now, since this is my very first attempt. I've done some carving before, but never on a pot like this. That's through one layer. Through the second layer, maybe into the third. You can see blue, black, the regular clay, blue. There's a layer of black and regular clay under that. So I can actually go deeper. There we go. I'm not sure I want to go that deep on all of these. There's not a lot of clay left if I do that. But that's actually all of the layers exposed. All right, so I went all the way around. All right, that looks pretty good to me. Some of these were a little bit on the deep side. I probably shouldn't have carved down to the last clear layer. So the other thing I'm going to do while it's at this stage is clean up the lip a little bit. I will then cover it so it dries very slowly. I worry that it might crack with the unevenness in terms of the thickness of the clay. But I think I'm going to do that in a future video. If you have any questions about this process or have any tips for how to do it better, please let me know and leave a comment below. Thanks.